What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar going into tomorrow, what the charts are suggesting, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin to double information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, I'm looking at SPY right now. We do have this bull flag like pattern that is developing on the charts, but there's no guarantee the pattern will play out because the current trend is looking a bit more bearish, and there is a possibility that we could retrace a little bit more before we get a very, very nice bounce, in my opinion. So I'm going to break down why I believe this, some very important levels to be watching for, and how things are looking for other tickers out there from Tesla and beyond. But first, let's talk about some data real quick. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Monday, March 25th, and we have some data coming out. In the morning, we have Bostic from the Fed giving a speech. Then 30 minutes after the market opens at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the new home sales report, which is very minor data. It might not cause that big of a move. The bigger pieces of data are going to be coming out at 10:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. At 10:30 a.m., once again, Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour after the market opens, we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index coming out. Some important manufacturing numbers that could affect us to some extent. Then we have Cook from the Fed giving a speech at the same time. And after that, we have at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out. So watch for volatility at these times. Those are the main times to be watching for bigger moves. Now, Tuesdays, when we have even more data coming out, Wednesdays also when we have very minor data, and then Thursday is going to be another data heavy day as we have PCE estimates, not to mention the jobs reports and the Michigan Consumer Sentiments data. Let me note something. I did make one little mistake in my earlier video on Friday because next Friday, or I would say this coming Friday for March 29th, the stock market is going to be closed in commemorance of Good Friday. So there's not going to be trading on Friday. We have a very short trading week this week. The last day for trading is going to be on Thursday. I want to give you guys a big warning about that. So that's going to make things a lot more interesting. Moving forward, this is what the current earnings calendar is looking like. We just have a couple of others coming out, at least on Monday, all minor pieces of data, minor pieces of earnings. Nothing too crazy is coming out for the week. We do have GameStop, which I think a lot of retail will pay attention to. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is very, very minor. I'm not really expecting too much to happen. And then moving forward, when it comes to what we're seeing on the options chain for SPY, we have tomorrow being March 25th. We have a very, very small amount of options expiring, even though there is a high 3.07 puts to call ratio. There are actually a total of under 400,000 options in total expiring. So it's not that big, not that crazy. So I don't really expect anything to be that insane because of this solely. But I do want to note that as the days go on, there are very, very few options expiring as well on Tuesday and Wednesday. But then Thursday is going to be a very monstrous day because we have just under 400,000 calls expiring on Thursday, and we have over 1.95 million of these puts expiring. 513 is max pain. We have a 5.32 puts to call ratio. Basically, if I was a market maker, I would probably try to either hold the market up, cause a lot of chop, or even cause a big bounce and try to squeeze as many shorts as I can. Try to hurt a lot of options holders. So be very careful for Thursday. There's a good chance the market could try to rebound by then. But going into the week, we may start off on a weak note and end up on a much stronger note as we have a short trading week and lots of puts expiring on Thursday. Now, for the fear and greed index, right now we're just barely below extreme greed. This could actually tip a little bit more this way if the market does dip a bit more, but then it could always bounce back up later on. Right now, things are still extremely greedy. Things have remained greedy for quite some time. The VIX is in a neutral position, coming back down below our 50 daily moving average, which is still suggesting the market's on a bit of an uptrend. We're not truly on a big downtrend just yet. Even if the market dips a little bit, we have some leeway according to this. And we're seeing the same thing for other indicators. The puts and call positioning is starting to go up. When this tends to happen, this tends to mean the market is dipping a bit. And that's what's happening so far as well. So what do I see on the charts? How are things looking in my opinion? We're going to start off with SPY. Honestly, guys, SPY has this flag forming, and we have this nice support down here around this 520 area to be watching for. I believe that SPY is going to make its way down to 520 very soon. So we do have some more downside coming. So whether we get a little pop or not, that is very dependent on that. But I see 520 being tested. We'll have to see if this holds or not. If we lose this support, we could even continue to sink lower to about 518. We don't have to maintain this structure perfectly. We could still be bullish even if we don't. And here's the reason why. When you zoom out of the chart like this, you will see that we could still be on a big uptrend even if SPY comes all the way down to 518, 517. We could still be on an uptrend, right? We could still drop all the way down to like the 517s where this white trend line is, and then bounce back up to new all-time highs. That could still happen as this chart is still on a very, very strong uptrend. It's still bullish overall. So there is a lot of leeway. There's a lot of space for this to actually dip a little bit more and still maintain this bullish structure. I want to make that very, very clear. So, what does this mean for tomorrow? For tomorrow, there's a very, very, very good chance we're going to be testing 520 flat. We could pop a little bit when we're in the pre-market and come back down. And I think 520 could be tested. If we lose that, we could get closer to 518. And once we make our way down to this support, we're going to be watching this trend line. We could actually end up bouncing off of this very, very soon and making our way back up, which I find to be very, very likely considering the fact that there's so many puts expiring and our puts to call ratios over 5 for Thursday. So Thursday, by then, the market could rebound a bit, but I do anticipate some downside to start off the week and then a nice strong finish as time goes on. Watch resistance right over here around this 522 area. We have support at 520. If we lose that, watch 519, which is where we have our first imbalance. And additionally, we also have 518 as our next level, 517.5, and then 516. In my opinion, there's a very good chance SPY kind of like pops a bit and makes its way down lower. Tests 520. We'll see if that holds or not. If we lose this, we could come a little bit lower to about 518, then try to make our way back up higher. That's one of the most likely possibilities. And then for resistance on SPY, just as a reminder, we have 522 as resistance and 523.11. I'll be watching those just to be safe. Anyways, going back to the triple Q, there is a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure, but I am seeing some weakness in this trend because we established a lower high, and we're starting to see other indicators looking a little bit weaker on it so far. So I would say that for the triple Q, watch resistance at 446, 446.7, eventually 448. Watch support at 444, followed by 442. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing kind of like pops a bit and actually drops and gets a retest of 444. Could go a little bit lower, maybe consolidate for a bit, then eventually start pushing up higher to end the week. I think there's a very good chance of that happening, and I think that they could be establishing another reaccumulation right here. So there is a possible inverse head and shoulders. I don't think it's going to just pop straight back up though, because of how resistance has been treating it. I think it's more likely this might be just like a lower high being established here, and we might drop a little bit more before we try to rebound a bit. So I find that to be a lot more likely on the QQQ. Now, unlike the QQQ, I am seeing some strength on Aapl stock. Aapl came all the way down to about this 170 support, grabbing liquidity. Now it's trying to rebound a bit. Now, Aapl is also very dependent on the news, as there's big news involving the DOJ that came out. That's what led to this sell-off. So I want to say that it depends on the news, of course, but from a technical standpoint, this does look like it may attempt to bounce if we could try to establish a higher low around 171. So I think firstly, we're going to be watching support at 170.9 and then 170. We have resistance at 172.5, followed by 173 point, it's right here, 173.25, then 174. I think that Aapl might dip a little bit, consolidate, and try to push a little higher back above 173.25, all the way back up there. So look for a little dip and then a bounce. It's a real possibility. There's an imbalance here, which Aapl could start filling later on, and that could actually help the market bounce. So I wouldn't be surprised if SPY and the Q could kind of like dip a little bit. Maybe Aapl comes down with them, then Aapl starts pushing slowly later on during the week, and that could actually help the market rebound too. So that's going to be one thing worth noting. We also have Tesla, which is showing some strength. We have a bullish wedge forming here. So honestly, guys, with Tesla, it's very difficult to predict what the stock will do because it's so news dependent, and we have big deliveries coming up in about like a little bit over a week. So I would say that for Tesla, it depends on the news, of course. Always remember that. So predicting it is a lot more difficult. But technically speaking, it looks a little bit bullish. So I could see it actually trying to fill this imbalance, retesting this previous support, becoming resistance in the 172 area. So I do see Tesla kind of pushing a little higher, and it may even outperform the market and try to make its way up towards 175 again. I could see a little rebound and then a rejection. I find that to be very likely as this thing has been trading sideways for quite some time. But as of right now, I do see some bullish structure right here. So I could see a little push right here up here, and then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. But I do see it at least trying to pump a little bit when we start off tomorrow. That's the most likely possibility. The news is another factor. I can't predict that, but what I said is just a lot more probable. For Nvidia, let me just call out that Nvidia's chart is bullish because right here, you guys can see that we have a very, very nice looking structure. Let me just fix that for 1 second. I'm saying this because when you look at the chart like this, we have a nice potential accumulation that formed your nice double bottom. And with this bouncing, it's going to try to push a little higher to about 960. Now, before we get up to 960, approaching the all-time high, Nvidia could dip a bit. If we do end up losing our support at 938, look for a move back down towards this like 930 area. If not, 920, this is like 924. This is where we have the previous resistance becoming support. If we get a little dip on this, it might just rebound a little bit and then start to push higher. So I could see a move like that coming to Nvidia for our final kind of like white coffee and SOS phase. So that's actually when we enter our later phases in terms of like its pattern. So I think that watch resistance at 944. If we break past that, if we get above 950, we're going to be pushing to 960 basically. And if we end up sinking a little bit below our support at 935, watch 930, this 925 area, then 920. I think that it's very likely that this may dip a little bit and then try to rebound later on. But I do find that to be a bit more probable looking at the current time frame and also looking at the pattern. So there's a very good chance Nvidia kind of dips a little bit and makes its way back up a little bit later on. Anyways, that is it for the main five I typically go over. Let's talk about a couple more that a lot of people may be interested in. We next off have Super Micro. So Super Micro has been on a bit of an uptrend. I would say that this chart is showing improvement, but zooming out onto the 4-hour time frame, it's been trying to respect an uptrend, kind of showing some weakness here, really struggling at this 1,000 area. So it looks to me like it might dip towards 950 again. Might dip a little bit. If we lose that, it could drop a little bit more. But I could see a little dip coming, then it attempts to bounce afterwards. So we'll just have to see how it goes. For resistance, I'd recommend looking at about this 982 area followed by 1,000. I think it may dip a bit before it attempts to make a bigger move back up. So I'll be watching for that very, very closely. But anyways, guys, I do think there's going to be a little dip coming to this before it tries to rebound. So I'll be watching for that. For Rivian, as of right now, I'd say that this chart is showing some weakness. It's been, it has like a head and shoulders like structure right here. When you zoom out all the way, this is like a left shoulder, this is a head, and this is like a right shoulder. I do see it dipping a bit more towards like 10.5. So I think that the market may drag this down a little bit. 10.5 could be tested as we actually lost support at our 5 EMA. So it might drop a little bit more, then we'll see if it gets a bounce or not. If it loses 10.5, it could even sink lower towards about 10 flat, but I think that there might be a little dip and then a bounce. So watch for that very carefully. For SoFi is showing a little bit of weakness in my opinion as well. I think that we're trying to test the support right here. We have support at, let me just double check where the support is. It's currently going to be around 7.28. If we lose this, I do see this imbalance down here at $7 coming. So I think it's going to come down to 7, and we'll be watching to see if we get a bounce or not. So watch for that carefully. We're seeing some weakness on the chart. For AMD is in a very, very interesting place. It's kind of like range trading. So I would watch and see if we try to hold around our 200 EMA. The 200 EMA happens to be around 170. What is that? 177. If we hold this, it could rebound to 182 and then eventually 186. If we fail to hold this, we're going to be sinking even lower, all the way down to like 172. So watch support right now at 177. We'll see if this holds. If we hold this, we could rebound. If we fail, we're going to be sinking lower. In my opinion, there is potential for this to try to base around here. It's trying to base right now, so it's showing some strength. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders, so it could try to bounce. I could see an attempt to rebound a bit as long as we hold above 177. And we could be looking for a move to 182, then 186. That is a possibility, but we have to hold 177 just to be safe. If we lose that, we start sinking even lower. ARM is just consolidating, kind of trading sideways. We have support at 132.5. We have resistance right here around 135 to 136. We've been stuck in this range for the last like 2.5 days. This could actually dip a bit. I could be looking for a test about 131.7 if the market dips a little bit. So I do see it kind of trading sideways, maybe dipping a bit, then trying to bounce, but watch for that very carefully. For Coinbase, I'm seeing a little bit of weakness right now. It could actually dip a bit towards the support over here. So I'm going to be looking for a test of 251. It might actually dip a little bit more to 251. It could bounce off that. If it fails to bounce there, we have a previous resistance becoming support close to where our 50 EMA is, around, I'd say around 240, around that area. So I do see a little dip coming, and then we'll see if we get a bounce or not. But watch for that on Coinbase. For Amazon, this thing has been stuck within a range. Now, one thing that's of a concern for Amazon is the fact that we love to get rejected very close to 180, 179 to 180. So it might try to retest 180 and come back down. And there could be a move back down to like 176 coming in the next couple of days. So look for a push and then a move back down if we reject off 180. If we break 180, we could be pushing for 182, but that's a little bit less likely considering that they're grabbing liquidity again. So I'm going to be looking for a push and a move back down. So watch for that very carefully. For Meta, in my opinion, is it has a nice double bottom like structure. It may actually push a little bit higher. Could retest 512 again to 516. This is where we have this top right here, and then make our way back down to about 503. So a little pop and drop is very probable. Looking at the structure, may pop a bit, then come back down to about 503. So watch for that, and that's going to be our key support for the day. For Microsoft, the chart is bullish. As of right now, it's trying to go higher and higher. But I do want to note that we have some very tough resistance around this 430 area. So as of right now, it's holding up. But if we get a rejection off 430, if we fail to break it, I'm going to be looking for a move back down to about 424.75. So I could see it actually dipping a bit in the future if we get a rejection off 430. Okay, if we get that rejection, if we break past it, we're going to be easily pushing for 432, 435. But my guts tells me that there's a risk of it coming down to 424. If we get a rejection off 4.3, which is some very, very tight resistance, we have to wait and see just to be safe. For the VIX is looking a little bullish on the 4 hour. I can actually see this thing trying to go up to about 13.42 as we held support at 12.4. So it hit critical support, is trying to bounce off that. It could try to push higher. If that ends up being the case, that could be a little bit of like a bearish signal for the markets. So this might get dragged up because the market may dip a little bit, but then things could always change. Excuse me, a little bit later on, depending on what happens. The dollar is also breaking out. It actually broke past this resistance right here around 104.25. So now it's trying to go higher towards this resistance right here around 104.6. And if it breaks that, we have our next target of 105. So it looks bullish. There's no doubt about that. It is trying to push higher. Could try to go a little higher from here. If it does keep pushing, this is a bearish signal for the markets. So I'll be watching that very carefully. What all this is kind of like suggesting to me is the fact that there's a risk of some more downside on SPY and also for the market. Some tickers like Tesla are showing strength, but we could see SPY continue to downtrend for a bit. But there's a big but. But even if we do downtrend in this very, very tiny looking structure right here in this little channel, right? See how it's like dropping, dropping, dropping. It could do this for a little longer. Could even go down to 520, if not 518, 517. But the bigger picture, the much bigger trend could still be bullish despite that. We have a small bearish trend right here, but the bigger trend could still be bullish as long as we hold above like 518 or so. So we have some room to drop a bit and still remain bullish overall. This suggests to me that SPY may dip a bit more, but we're going to be looking for a nice bounce maybe later on during the week. So I just want to call that out, guys. Make sure you watch your levels. SPY does have a risk of dropping a bit more, in my opinion, but we'll see if we get that bounce later or not. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Enjoy what the weekend has to offer. Have a very happy Sunday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning before the market opens. So take care, guys. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.